this very restorative class, the aim is to stretch out and release some tightness, particularly through the back, the shoulders, and the hips. And we're going to be using our blocks to achieve that. So come to a seated position on your mat, and you bring the soles of your feet together, coming into butterfly pose. And then bring your blocks and just place them underneath your legs to support them. So whatever height that may be. And then you can just relax your arms. If you want to bring your arms to the knees, have them resting on your feet or on the shins, that's entirely up to you. Remember, this is your yin practice. This is your calming, grounding, relaxing, whatever position you're comfortable in. Sitting as straight as possible with the shoulders relaxed, away from the ears, the eyes closed. Deep breaths, feeling that belly rise and fall. As we come into the right mental space for our practice today, observing the body, notice where you're holding on to tension and resistance. Focusing on the breath. Feel your mind slowing down as you become present. As you exist in the moment, focusing on your breathing. Entering that mental space for your practice. Preparing to come into our first pose of the day. All these poses we will be doing lying down on our mats and using our blocks as a tool. So set your intention for the rest of your practice to remain present. Keep that focus on the breath and open your eyes. So bring your knees up and you're going to lie down. The first thing we're going to do is open up this chest and release through the pecs at the front and get those shoulders pulled back and down. So there are a couple of ways you can do this. So with your block, you can take the narrow side and bring that up between the shoulder blades. And then just let the head fall back. The arms come out to the sides, onto the backs of the hands. And breathe. This is quite intense. So if this is too much for you, then your alternative is to shift the block, which I will show you. So coming out of this, just move carefully and slowly onto your side. Let's move that out the way. You can take your block, starting at that same point, again, between the shoulder blades, coming down onto your back. Again, arms out along the ground, resting on the back of the hands. And feel this chest opening, these shoulders dropping down with gravity towards the ground. If you liked that intense feeling of the block along its narrow side, but you don't like that flexion through the neck, your third option is to place that block again between the shoulder blades, and we've done this before. So the supported fish pose, and then you can use your second block just to support the head. So this block you can have up on its narrow edge, or if you want to get a little bit of extension through the neck, you can drop it down onto its flat edge. And then rest the arms. So this can be an extremely uncomfortable pose physically and emotionally as well. So if you think about how much tension that we normally carry through the shoulders, as we start to release this tension physically, we release that tension emotionally as well. So with this pose, we are extremely vulnerable, opening up the front of the body, exposing that vulnerable side of the body. And so what you might find is that you are experiencing feelings, perhaps of anxiety. So extend that exhalation. Consciously double the length of the exhalation compared to the inhalation. This stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And this is the nervous system that we are wanting to activate in all of these restorative poses. We're wanting to ground ourselves. We're wanting to relax. Notice if there's any part of your body that is resisting this stretch, that is kind of holding on. And then send your breath to that area as you focus on that area. And with that long, controlled exhalation, let go. If it helps, count during your breath. So inhale for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 8. As you prepare to move out of this pose, we're going to do so very mindfully, very carefully. Bend your legs so your feet come flat on the floor. And then you're going to roll over onto your right arm. So let your right arm just support the body as you roll off that block. If you have a block under your head, remove that. Remove the block behind your shoulders. And then come back onto the back again with the legs bent, feet flat on the ground. And take a few breaths here as your body just readjusts and the muscles return to their sort of resting length. And then we prepare to move into our next pose. So from the ground, we're going to bring the block underneath us again, this time slightly lower. So instead of it being between the shoulder blades, we are pressing the top edge of the block along the bottom of the shoulder blades. So bring your hips up and your body up and bring that block underneath you until you feel that edge of the block just on the tips of your shoulder blades. Bring your second block and just place that underneath your sacrum just to support you. And again, arms out at the sides, roll these shoulders away from the ears. And relax into that pose. So remember that all of these poses are meant to be restorative. And they shouldn't cause any pain. There may be discomfort, and discomfort is fine. In fact, sometimes it's good to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because we realize then it's a state that we can exist in, that there's nothing actually wrong with being uncomfortable. But we shouldn't be feeling pain. So if you're feeling tightness or pinching or that sharp pain, please move out of that pose. Listen to your body. So what we're achieving with these blocks as we move down the spine is we're creating some length through the spine. We're getting some of those muscles just to stretch a little bit, to let go of some of that tension that they're hold on to. And as we let go of that tension physically, we release mentally and emotionally as well. So observe your reactions in all these poses. Notice how they make you feel. As we open the heart here towards the sky, do you notice an upwelling of emotion perhaps? And observe that. Don't get caught up in these emotions, but observe them. And always come back to that breath. That breath that's the only constant in your life. And you exhale, you release, and you let go. And you sink deeper into your pose as you surrender to it. So coming out of this pose, what I want you to do is actually engage your glutes, because I want you to look after your back now. If you are going to move quickly and unmindfully, you are probably going to cause some kind of fast muscle contraction or even a spasm in your back. So engage your glutes and slowly press down with your heels as you support your body. Remove these blocks, and then one vertebra at a time, holding your core tight, supporting your body and your glutes tight as well. Roll that spine down onto the mat. And again, take a few breaths here, recover before we move to our next pose. So our next pose, we have done this a few times before. It's almost a supported bridge pose. So press down with your heels and bring these hips up off the ground, and then slide your block in underneath your sacrum so that the bottom of your block is basically in line with the bottom of your coccyx. So you can have your block on its flat side. Remember, your block is created in such a shape that you can alter the heights. So you can have that on its narrow edge. And if you want to go even higher, you can put it on its highest sort of setting, if you will. Just making sure you sort of find that point of balance, that you are not trying to maintain your balance by tensing the muscles. That defeats the object. We want you to completely relax into these poses so that the muscles let go and we can access those tougher connective tissues. So find that height that suits you. Palms up towards the ceiling. The reason we always lie with our palms facing the ceiling is that it rolls these arms in their sockets and opens up your shoulders and your chest. And breathe into that belly. Relax into this pose. Remembering if you do have your block at its sort of lowest position and you feel things starting to relax and release, you can always move it higher. And then once you have that in that position, then come into stillness once more. And focus on that breath. I find this position in particular very helpful for tightness through my lower back. If your block is flat on the ground, just stay exactly where you are. If your block is on its sort of highest position, press down with your feet just to sort of support yourself and turn the block into this position like I have mine, and take a few breaths there. And then from this position, turn it down onto its flat side and take a few breaths. Now we're going to move across to the front of the hips. So extend this right leg along the ground. Make sure your block is supporting you. So just move it down slightly lower and extend that right leg, and then bring this left leg up and bring it in towards the chest. So we did the same kind of stretch I showed you before on a roller. So we're just using the block. It's the exact same effect. So we're elevating that pelvis to increase the stretch along the front. So you should feel some resistance through that flexor in the right leg. And as you're feeling it subside, what you may be able to do is then move that left leg closer in towards the body. So the closer you bring this left leg in towards the chest, the more of a stretch you're going to feel across that right flexor. So breathe and relax into this pose. Remember with your hip releases, that irritation that can arise. If you do notice that, acknowledge it and observe it, and then let it go. Okay, so release that left leg and slowly bring that foot down to the mat. Then bend this right leg. Remember to move slowly. And then extend the left leg. As we bend this right leg and bring that knee in towards the chest. Feeling that beautiful extension through the front of the left hip. Breathe. So we're getting that lovely extension through the straight leg. But this leg that we are pulling into the chest, we're getting some flexion through that flexor as well. So we're getting it to move to an increased range of motion as compared to what it's used to for most of us. So start preparing to move out of this pose, releasing that leg and allowing this right foot to find its way back to the mat. And then bending the left and removing that block and coming down flat onto the ground. Now from here you can come into your final meditation. And what you can do if you like is to actually bring a block underneath your knees and roll your feet in towards each other, or the toes in towards each other. That kind of opens up that sacrum a little bit and gives a nice bit of relaxation to the lower back. And then arms flat on the ground and relax as you come into Savasana.